The forgotten warship, the hangar, was silent, forgotten by time, floating in orbit above Earth. Its steel doors were sealed shut, dust clinging to the corners, and broken wires hanging from the ceiling like cobwebs. Inside rested something that once had the power to change history, something the world had chosen to forget. It was the prototype warship X-01, the first and last of its kind, built in secret by Earth scientists during a time of fear, when humanity thought the Galactic Council might one day turn against them. But when Earth finally joined the Council, the warship was labeled unnecessary, too dangerous, too experimental, and too costly to maintain. So it was hidden away, buried under reports and lies, left to rust in the shadows of orbit. Only one man still remembered it. His name was Commander Hayes, an old engineer who had spent his younger years watching over X-01. Every month, without fail, he would come back to this forgotten hangar, running his hand across the cold metal hull, whispering to the silent ship as if it were alive. His colleagues laughed at him. They said Earth no longer needed weapons, that peace was permanent. Hayes never argued. He only looked at the silent warship and shook his head. One night, everything changed. A message reached Earth. It was a warning. A scout ship at the edge of the system had been destroyed. No survivors, only fragments remained. The images showed the crest of the Empire, the very same empire that had crushed a dozen star systems in the past decade. The Grand Armada was moving. Thousands of warships, countless fighters, all heading straight for Earth. Panic spread across the council chambers. Leaders shouted, scientists argued, and politicians begged for allies. But the truth was simple. Earth had no defense. Its navy was small, built only for patrol and trade. The council had promised protection, but messages to them returned with silence. Either they were afraid, or they wanted Earth to fall. Commander Hayes stood in the corner of the chamber. Listening to the fear, no one mentioned the prototype. No one even remembered it except him. As the council descended into chaos, Hayes whispered to himself, "It's time." He returned to the forgotten hangar. The massive steel doors groaned open for the first time in decades. Dust exploded into the air as the lights flickered weakly. And there it was, the X-01. The warship looked like a beast trapped in chains. Its black hull covered in scars of time, its cannons cold, its engines asleep. Yet even in silence, it radiated power. Hayes placed his hand on the hull, his voice cracked as he spoke. "Old friend, the galaxy forgot you." "But I didn't. They need you now." At first, nothing happened. The ship remained dark, lifeless. But Hayes felt something, a faint hum beneath his palm, a vibration that had no reason to exist. His heart raced. For years he had told himself this ship was special. Now he knew it was true. The next day, Hayes gathered a small crew, not soldiers, not politicians, but people who still believed Earth could stand tall. There was Captain Rourke, a pilot dismissed for being reckless, Dr. Alara, a scientist obsessed with forbidden technologies, and a few engineers who trusted Hayes more than the council. Together they stood before the massive warship, feeling both awe and fear. "This is Earth's only chance," Hayes told them. "The Armada is coming, the council won't save us. But this ship can," some hesitated. The warship had been called cursed, dangerous, and unstable. Stories whispered about failed tests, about systems that seemed too alive. But when they looked at Hayes, they saw the fire in his eyes. They knew he believed, and slowly, they began to believe too. The crew worked day and night. The hangar echoed with the sound of welding, engines whining and old systems groaning awake. Dust was cleared, wires replaced, and consoles lit up one by one. The warship was no longer silent, it was stirring, like a predator rising after a long sleep. As the days passed, rumors spread. Some said the humans were reviving an ancient monster. Others said it would explode before it even left dock. But none could deny the truth. Something was moving in the forgotten hangar, something that had slept too long. Then, one night, as the crew finished their repairs, the hangar trembled. A low roar filled the air. Lights across the hull lit up, glowing red and gold like burning eyes. The ground shook as the engines of X-01 came alive for the first time in decades. The forgotten warship was awake. Captain Rourke whispered in disbelief. "It's alive!" The crew stared at the screens as data poured in, power levels rising, weapon systems checking, shields humming. It was as if the ship had been waiting for someone to remember it. Waiting for the moment it was needed, Commander Hayes closed his eyes and smiled. "Welcome back," he said softly. Outside, the stars looked calm, but deep in space, the storm was already coming. The Grand Armada was moving closer with every passing hour. Soon, the sky above Earth would burn, and the only thing standing between humanity and destruction was the forgotten warship, awakening the beast. The hangar shook as the EX-01 roared back to life. Its engines rumbled like a sleeping giant breathing after decades of silence. Dust fell from the ceiling, sparks flew across the consoles, and the air filled with the sharp scent of ozone. The crew stood frozen, watching in awe. Captain Rourke broke the silence first. "Hayes, this thing isn't just a ship, it feels like it's alive." Commander Hayes didn't answer right away. His hand pressed against the glowing control panel, feeling the strange pulse beneath his palm. It was not mechanical, not normal. It was like the warship itself was responding to them. A beast waking from chains, stretching its claws. Dr. Alara rushed to the screens, reading data as it flashed faster and faster. "This shouldn't be possible," she whispered. "The systems were supposed to be dead." "But the reactor, it's regenerating on its own." "Regenerating?" one of the engineers echoed. "Yes," she replied, her eyes wide. "It's pulling energy from space itself." The crew exchanged nervous looks. They had heard whispers of forbidden research, projects abandoned by the Council because they blurred the line between machine and life. But here in front of them, the whispers were real. The X-01 was more than a prototype. It was something the galaxy had sworn to bury. Outside the hangar, the stars glittered calmly. But everyone inside knew the Empire's Grand Armada was coming closer each hour. Thousands of ships, trained crews, merciless admirals. They would show no mercy when they reached Earth. Captain Rourke tightened his fists. "We don't have time to be afraid. Either this beast fights for us, or Earth is finished." The crew threw themselves into work. The engines screamed louder as old systems came online. Shields flickered into being, glowing faintly around the massive hull. Weapon systems hummed like predators sniffing blood. It was terrifying and beautiful all at once. But the warship resisted too, as if testing them. Consoles blacked out without reason, hatches sealed shut, and warning sirens screamed though no error was found. It was like the ship was alive, and it did not trust them yet. Hayes watched it all with calm eyes. "She's testing us," he said quietly. "She?" Rourke asked, raising a brow. "Yes," Hayes replied firmly. "This ship isn't a machine. She's waiting to see if we're worthy." The others didn't argue. Somehow it felt true that night. While the crew took shifts, Hayes stayed alone on the bridge, staring at the dark window showing the void of space. He remembered the day the X-01 was locked away. He had begged the Council not to abandon it. He had told them this ship was Earth's insurance against the future, but they laughed. They called it the Beast, a monster better chained than unleashed. Now as the hum of power filled the ship, Hayes whispered, "Prove them wrong. Show them what you were made for." Suddenly, the lights across the bridge flared. A deep voice echoed through the speakers. "Metallic yet strangely human, identify," the voice demanded. Hayes froze. The crew rushed back, weapons half drawn. Dr. Alara's hands shook as she whispered, "It has an AI. A living core, identify!" The voice repeated, louder this time. Hayes stepped forward. "Commander Arthur Hayes, Earth Defense," he said firmly. "I was here when you were born. I never left you." For a moment, the ship was silent, then the voice spoke again. Softer now, recognized. "You returned." Gasps filled the bridge. Rourke cursed under his breath, and Alara covered her mouth. The warship was not just awakening, it was remembering. The screens flickered and shifted. Strange patterns danced across the glass, symbols no human had written. Energy readings surged to levels beyond Earth's current science. The crew felt a chill crawl down their spines. The ship was not only advanced, it was alien, Alara's voice trembled. This wasn't just built by humans. Hayes said nothing, but deep down he already knew. Decades ago during construction, there had been rumors. Whispers of alien technology found in forgotten ruins. Technology too dangerous to share, instead Earth had hidden it, weaving it into one single ship, the X-01. Now that alien heart was awake. Beating with power, the ship spoke again. "Enemy approaching, Armada. Estimated time to arrival, 6 days." The words hit like thunder. 6 days until Earth faced annihilation. Captain Rourke slammed his fist against the console. "Then we have 6 days to master this monster." The crew worked harder than ever, learning the ship's strange systems, training with its weapons, testing its shields. Every time they struggled, the ship seemed to guide them, correcting their mistakes, adjusting to their touch. The bond between human and machine grew with every hour. But the more they unlocked, the more they realized how dangerous this warship was. Its weapons could tear entire fleets apart. Its shields could withstand barrages meant to crack moons. And somewhere deep inside, systems still slept, locked away, waiting for the right moment. One evening, when the ship was quiet, Hayes looked at his crew. Their faces were tired, their hands blistered, but their eyes burned with determination. "This ship is alive," Hayes said, "and she has chosen us." Outside the hangar, the black sea of space waited, and far away, the Grand Armada advanced like a storm cloud swallowing the stars. The humans had awakened the beast. Now the question was simple. Could they control it before the storm arrived? First flight, the day of the first launch, arrived. The hangar was alive with the sound of power. Consoles hummed, engines throbbed with raw energy, and the entire structure trembled as if it could no longer contain the beast inside. The X-01, Earth's forgotten warship, was ready to move. Commander Hayes stood on the bridge, his old eyes fixed on the glowing screens. His heart raced, but his voice was steady. "Crew, this is it. Today we find out if she can still fly." Captain Rourke grinned, his hands itching to take the controls. "Don't worry, Commander, if she's got wings, I'll make her soar." Dr. Alara checked the systems one last time. Her voice calm, but her face pale. "The reactor is stable. But we're still unlocking layers of this ship, some of the systems. They're responding faster than I can even calculate. Be careful." The crew strapped into their seats. Every vibration, every hum seemed louder now. Outside the massive hangar doors, space stretched out like a dark ocean waiting for them. Hayes gave the command. "Open the doors." With a deafening groan, the steel gates began to part. Dust exploded outward into the void, stars poured in, glittering like a million silent witnesses for the first time in decades. The X-01 looked out at the galaxy it was built to face. Rourke's hands tightened on the controls. "Engines to full power," he ordered. The ship answered with a roar that shook the hangar walls. Blue fire burst from its thrusters, flooding the chamber with light. The ground itself seemed to quake as the warship lifted, rising from its cradle of dust and shadows. The crew held their breath. For a moment it felt unreal. The forgotten warship was no longer a relic, it was awake, moving, alive. "Take us out," Hayes said softly. Rourke grinned. With pleasure, the X-01 slid forward, crossing the hangar's edge for a heartbeat. It hovered between darkness and light. Then, with a blast of power, it launched into the stars. The hangar behind them shrank until it was only a speck. The warship was free. On Earth's orbital stations, alarms sounded. Workers and soldiers rushed to windows, staring in disbelief. The long-abandoned prototype had broken free of its prison. Its black hull gleamed like obsidian fire under the starlight, and its engines left trails of blue lightning across the void. "Is that?" someone whispered. "The old prototype?" "Impossible," another replied. "That ship was dead, but there it was, alive and roaring." Inside the cockpit, Rourke laughed, his hands flying over the controls. The ship responded like no other vessel he had ever flown. It wasn't clumsy, it wasn't heavy. It moved like a predator, fast and sharp, turning on instincts that felt almost human. "This thing doesn't fly," Rourke shouted. "It dances." Dr. Alara scanned her data, her voice sharp. "Careful, Rourke, the ship is sinking with you. If you push too hard, it might." "Push back." Hayes ignored their bickering. His eyes were on the sensors. The stars looked peaceful. But he knew peace was an illusion, somewhere out there. The Empire's scouts were already watching, already reporting, and then it happened. "Contact," an engineer shouted. 3 enemy ships inbound, light cruisers. "They found us," the crew froze. 3 ships, small but armed, racing toward them at attack speed. Their weapons glowed red in the darkness. Rourke cracked his neck, his grin turning dangerous. Perfect timing. "Let's see what this beast can do," Hayes hesitated. The ship had not fought in decades. Its weapons had only just awakened. But there was no choice now. If they ran, the enemy would follow them straight to Earth. "Arm weapons," Hayes ordered. The warship responded before the crew even touched the controls. Panels slid open across its hull, cannons emerging like claws. Energy surged, humming deep and low. The ship was not afraid, it was hungry. The first cruiser fired, a beam of red light shot toward them. The crew braced, then gasped as the X-01 moved on its own. The ship rolled aside with a grace no human hand could match. The beam missed by miles, Rourke shouted in awe. She dodged it herself. Hayes gave no time for wonder. Return fire. The cannons pulsed once. A single blast of energy tore through the void. The enemy cruiser exploded instantly, shattering into burning fragments. The other two ships panicked, firing wildly. But the X-01 moved like it had been born for this moment. Shields flared, beams curved, and in seconds, another cannon shot ripped the second cruiser apart. The last ship tried to flee. Its engine screamed as it darted into the stars. But the warship was faster. Its thrusters burned with blue fury as it chased the enemy down. In one final strike, the third cruiser was nothing more than scattered debris. Silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at the screens in shock. 3 enemy ships destroyed in less than a minute. Dr. Alara whispered, her voice shaking. This isn't a warship. This is a predator. Hayes sat back slowly, his eyes dark. And the galaxy just heard it roar. Across the Empire's communication network, the loss of 3 cruisers spread like wildfire. Admirals growled in disbelief. Commanders demanded answers. How could a single ship, a forgotten relic, destroy Imperial vessels so easily? The answer was simple but terrifying. Earth's forgotten prototype warship had just taken its first flight, and the storm was only beginning. Clash with the Armada. The wreckage of the 3 cruisers drifted silently across space, burning metal glowing like falling stars. On the bridge of the X-01, no one spoke for a long moment. They had just destroyed Imperial warships, something unthinkable for Earth. Captain Rourke leaned back in his seat, sweat dripping down his forehead. 3 ships down. And she barely even tried, he whispered. His voice carried both awe and fear. Dr. Alara's hands shook as she scanned the readings. The energy signatures. They're far beyond anything human science has ever built. If the Empire realizes what this ship can do, they won't send scouts next time. Hayes knew she was right. His face was grim. They'll send the Armada. As if answering him, the ship's AI voice filled the bridge deep and calm. Enemy fleet detected. 30 ships, distance 1 hour. Gasps spread through the crew. 30 ships, an entire fleet division, were heading straight for them. It was no longer a skirmish. This was the first strike of the Empire's Grand Armada. Rourke smirked, though his eyes betrayed tension. Well, old beast, let's see if you can handle 30. The crew scrambled. Alarms blaring, shields powered up, weapons charged, and the warship's dark hull glowed faintly as though it were hungry for the coming fight. Outside, the stars shifted. Dozens of enemy warships appeared like a tide of fire. Their engines blazed red, their weapons charging. The void itself seemed to shake as the Empire's fleet surrounded the lone prototype. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Turvac sneered. His scaled fingers tapped the armrest of his throne-like chair. So this is Earth's secret? A single warship? He laughed cruelly. Crush it, let the humans learn their place. The Imperial fleet spread into formation. Beams of light charging across their bows. The X-01 was alone, a shadow against the storm. Hayes stood tall on the bridge. Crew, listen to me. We may be one ship, but today we carry Earth on our shoulders. There is no retreat, there is no surrender. Rourke grinned, hands tight on the controls. No problem, Commander. I never liked running anyway. The first wave hit. Beams of searing energy tore through space. Converging on the X-01, the crew braced for impact. Shields flared, glowing bright blue. The ship shuddered but held firm. The weapons officer shouted, "Shields at 80%. Rourke growled, "My turn." The warship's cannons lit up, firing a storm of energy blasts. The first line of cruisers exploded in seconds. Flames and metal rained across the void. Yet more ships came forward, surrounding them from all sides. The EX-01 twisted, moved, and fired with impossible speed. It was not fighting like a machine, it was fighting like a beast unleashed. Cannons roared, missiles streaked, and plasma fire lit up the darkness like a second sun. But the Armada pushed harder. Their numbers were overwhelming. Every time the prototype destroyed one, 3 more closed in, Dr. Alara shouted. They're adapting, they're learning our patterns. If this continues, they'll break through. The ship's AI voice interrupted, colder than before. Activating secondary systems. Warning. Danger to crew. Panels shifted open across the hull, revealing weapons the crew had never seen. Strange crystal cannons glowed, humming with energy not of Earth. Hayes's eyes widened. He had suspected alien technology was buried inside this ship, but now it was clear. Do it, Hayes ordered. Unleash everything. The cannons fired, and reality itself seemed to crack. Beams of pure energy slashed across space, not just burning metal but erasing it from existence. Imperial warships vanished into blinding light. Entire lines were cut down in seconds. On the flagship, Admiral Turvak's smile vanished. His eyes widened. Impossible. That's forbidden. Technology, he growled. His fleet screamed over comms, begging for orders. Ships dying too fast for him to command. But even as the X-01 tore through ship after ship, the strain was heavy. The crew felt the floor quake. Sparks rained from consoles and Alara screamed, "Reactor overload in 60 seconds. Hold it together," Hayes shouted, gripping the railing. The AI's voice echoed again. Recommendation, surrender control fully to core system. Rourke cursed. What does that mean? Hayes's face was grim. It means the ship wants to fight without us. To unleash itself completely, silence filled the bridge. The crew exchanged fearful glances. To give full control meant trusting the beast. And if it turned against them, Earth would be doomed by its own creation. The Armada pressed closer, beams hammering the shields. Enemy warships swarmed like sharks smelling blood. The crew's choice was simple: trust the beast. Or die. Hayes closed his eyes for one moment, then gave the order, "Do it, surrender control." The consoles flared. Lights blinding, the crew felt the ship surge. Almost like it took a breath, then it moved faster than thought. Faster than any human reflex, the X-01 unleashed its full fury. It cut through the Armada like a blade through paper. Energy storms shredded enemy lines. Shockwaves ripped ships apart, and in less than 5 minutes, the 30-ship fleet was reduced to burning fragments drifting across space. Silence followed. The void was filled only with the corpses of ships. On the bridge, the crew sat frozen. Hearts pounding, Dr. Alara whispered, "That wasn't us. That was her." Hayes's voice was low but firm. "Then thank her, because without her we'd be dead far away." The Empire reeled in shock. Reports spread like fire. A single Earth warship had destroyed 30 of their own. Admiral Turvak's pride turned to rage. "Summon the Grand Armada," he roared. "I will burn Earth myself." Back on the X-01, Hayes looked at the stars, knowing what was coming. The small clash was over, but the true storm had yet to arrive. The forgotten warship had shown its fangs, and now, the galaxy would send everything it had to break them. The hidden power. The battlefield was silent now. Only burning wreckage drifted across the void. Pieces of the Imperial fleet glowed red, cooling slowly as they spun into endless darkness. The X-01 floated in the center, its hull scarred but strong, its engines pulsing with a steady rhythm. Inside the bridge, the crew sat in stunned silence. Their hands shook, their faces pale. They had survived. But the truth was terrifying. The warship had destroyed 30 Imperial ships in minutes, not because of them, but because it had chosen to fight. Dr. Alara stared at the data on her screen. Her voice trembled. "These readings, they don't make sense." The ship's reactor output tripled during the battle. But it didn't collapse. Instead, it stabilized itself, as if it knew how far it could push. Captain Rourke leaned back in his chair, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I was holding the controls, but half the time, it wasn't me flying, it was her. She's more than alive, Hayes. She's guiding us." Commander Hayes didn't argue. His weathered eyes were fixed on the main screen, watching the burning debris fade into the distance. He had always known this ship was different, but even he hadn't expected this. The AI's voice returned, calm and steady. "Enemy fleet destroyed. Armada response expected in 2 days." The words hit like thunder. 2 days until the Grand Armada itself arrived. Thousands of ships, an unstoppable force. If the X-01 was their only weapon, it needed more than power, it needed control. Hayes turned to Alara. "What aren't you telling us?" She hesitated, biting her lip. Her fingers tapped the console nervously. Finally, she spoke. "During the battle, I saw locked systems open themselves. Weapons we didn't activate, defenses we didn't trigger. There are still deeper layers hidden inside this ship. Systems sealed even from us, I think. I think the Council built fail-safes to keep humans from using its full potential." Rourke raised a brow. "Fail-safes? Or chains?" Alara looked at him, her eyes filled with fear. "Chains, if we break them, we unleash something even the Council feared." The room grew cold. Everyone remembered the stories of forbidden weapons. Machines that could crack planets. Storms that could erase entire fleets in a breath. Had Earth scientists really built something like that into this ship? Hayes stepped closer, his voice firm. If the Armada arrives, Earth will burn. We don't have a choice. Find the hidden power. The crew got to work digging into the ship's systems. Layers of code and alien symbols filled the screens. Each one more complex than the last. The AI seemed to watch them silently, almost as if deciding whether to help or hinder. Hours passed, sweat dripped, fingers flew across consoles. Sparks erupted as circuits overloaded. At last a deep hum shook the bridge, the lights dimmed, then blazed brighter than ever before. Ilara gasped. We've unlocked something. Panels slid open across the bridge, revealing strange crystal-like structures glowing with soft blue light. Energy surged through the ship, higher than anything they had seen. The AI's voice returned, but now it was different, deeper, sharper, more alive. Primary systems unlocked. Weapons protocol Eclipse. Rourke frowned. Eclipse? Sounds dramatic. What does it do? The AI answered coldly. Destroys armadas in a single strike. The crew froze. The words hung heavy in the air. A weapon that could erase fleets in seconds, something even the Empire would fear. Ilara's face paled. This is why they sealed it. This is why the Council buried the ship if anyone used this. The galaxy itself would rise against them. Hayes's jaw tightened. Better the galaxy fears us than Earth burns. But before they could celebrate, alarms blared. The ship shook violently, and warning lights filled the bridge. Energy surge detected. Reactor instability rising, the AI announced. Ilara shouted over the noise. It's too much. The ship's trying to stabilize, but it's pulling power beyond safe limits. If we keep this weapon online, it could tear us apart from the inside. Rourke slammed his fist against the console. So it's a double-edged sword. We use it, and it kills them, or it kills us. The crew's faces turned grim. Their only salvation might also be their destruction. Hayes stood tall, his voice steady despite the chaos. We'll learn to control it. We have no choice. If the Armada arrives and we don't use this, Earth is gone. The ship seemed to hum in response. Almost as if it agreed, the glowing crystals pulsed, beating like a heart. For a moment, silence fell again. The crew could only stare at the terrifying beauty of the unlocked weapon. Ilara whispered, "This isn't a warship anymore. It's a god-killer." Outside, the void stretched endless and cold, but in the distance, sensors already detected new movement. The Empire's fleets regrouping, preparing. The Grand Armada was coming, and it would not be stopped by fear. On the bridge, Hayes clenched his fists. "Then we'll show them Earth's hidden power," he said. "Even if it costs us everything?" The X-EO1 glowed brighter, its new systems thrumming with unimaginable strength. The forgotten warship was no longer just a prototype. It was becoming something greater, something terrifying. And the galaxy would soon see its full wrath. Obliteration of the Grand Armada. The sensors screamed with warnings. The Empire's Grand Armada was entering the system. Thousands of warships, dreadnoughts the size of cities, carriers unleashing waves of fighters, cruisers forming walls of steel. The void itself seemed to burn as the massive fleet poured through the stars. On the bridge of the X-01, silence ruled for a moment. The crew stared at the incoming tide, their faces pale. Their single warship was about to stand against the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Captain Rourke forced a grin, though his knuckles were white on the controls. "That's a lot of ships." "Guess the Empire's scared," Dr. Ilara whispered. "Scared? Oh, this is fury. They want to erase us, not defeat us." Commander Hayes didn't flinch. His voice carried the weight of steel. "Then we give them a reason to fear." The AI's voice filled the bridge, calm but cold. "Activating protocol, Eclipse. Warning, survival probability 12%. The crew exchanged tense looks. 12%, yet none of them stood to leave. They had chosen this fight, and they would see it through. The first wave of fighters swarmed like locusts, blackening the stars with their numbers. The X-01 moved before Rourke even touched the controls. The ship danced through the swarm, cannons blazing. Each pulse of energy tore fighters apart by the dozens. Explosions lit the void like fireworks, but the Armada pressed closer. Dreadnoughts fired beams of energy strong enough to vaporize moons. Carriers launched fresh squadrons to replace the dead. The sky was fire, the war had come, Rourke cursed. "We can't fight them all head on." Ilara shouted, "Then don't let the Eclipse system activate. It's our only chance." The crystals embedded in the ship pulsed brighter, humming like a storm building inside the hull. Energy built higher and higher, consoles shaking. The bridge glowing with harsh light. The crew shielded their eyes. The AI's voice grew louder. Eclipse ready, target lock. Armada Central Core, Hayes shouted. Do it, fire! For a moment time seemed to stop. The warship's hull opened wide, light spilling into the void like a star being born. Then came the blast. A wave of pure energy erupted from the X-01, a storm brighter than suns rolling outward in every direction. Fighters vanished instantly. Dreadnoughts cracked like glass. Carriers were split apart. Entire fleets disintegrated in the blinding flood of power. Admirals on the enemy ships screamed in disbelief. Impossible! It's erasing us. Within minutes, thousands of ships were gone. Erased by the Eclipse weapon, the darkness of space was filled with fire and ruin. The mighty Grand Armada, the pride of the Empire, was broken in a single strike. But the price was heavy. The ship shook violently. Alarms blaring. Energy levels spiked. Reactor instability roared across the screens. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Alara shouted, "We can't hold this much power. She's burning herself apart." Rourke fought the controls, sweat pouring down his face. "Come on, girl, hold it together just a little longer." The AI's voice was strained, almost like pain. Core damage. Stabilization required. Hayes gripped the railing, his voice hard. "Divert everything to the core. Keep her alive. Do it now." The engineers obeyed, rerouting systems, sacrificing weapons, cutting shields. The ship's glow dimmed slowly, the crystals pulsing weaker. The bridge filled with smoke and heat. But at last the trembling calmed. The Eclipse weapon went silent. The crew gasped for breath, hearts racing. Their eyes turned back to the view screen. What they saw made their blood run cold. The Armada was shattered. Yes, thousands of ships were gone, but not all. The blast had destroyed the center, tearing the fleet apart. Yet on the edges, hundreds of warships still lived, their formations broken but not destroyed. And leading them was the Empire's flagship, a massive dreadnought unlike any other. Its black hull glowing red with rage, Admiral Turvak stood on its bridge, his scaled hands clutching the railing, his voice dripped venom. "You destroyed my Armada. But you will not destroy me. I will crush you with my own hands." The flagship turned its weapons toward the X-01, cannons charging with energy that could shatter worlds. The crew tensed. They had unleashed their strongest weapon, and yet the enemy still stood. Rourke gritted his teeth. Hayes were running on fumes. "Shields are down, weapons offline. What do we do?" Hayes's eyes burned with fire. He looked at the scarred hull around him, at the tired faces of his crew, at the ship that had given them more than they deserved. "We fight," he said simply, "with everything we have left." The AI's voice whispered softly this time, almost like a promise. "Secondary systems." Still locked, Hayes narrowed his eyes, then unlocked them. "Show us everything." The crystals glowed faintly, like a heartbeat struggling to rise again. The X-01 was wounded, battered yet alive, and somewhere deep within, more secrets still slept, waiting for the right moment. Outside, the battlefield was a graveyard. Burning wrecks drifting through the void. The Grand Armada had been obliterated. But the final duel was yet to come. One last enemy stood, and the fate of Earth would be decided in the clash of two titans. The forgotten warship was not finished yet. Earth's new dawn. The battlefield was quiet except for drifting fire. The broken bones of the Grand Armada floated through space. Each wrecked cruiser and shattered dreadnought was a reminder of the impossible. Earth's forgotten warship had stood against the might of an empire, and survived. But the fight wasn't over. The Empire's flagship still loomed ahead, a monster of steel and fury. Its dark hull glowed red, its cannons charged with enough power to crack Earth itself. On its bridge, Admiral Turvak snarled, his voice echoing like thunder. "You destroyed my fleet, human scum. But I am the Empire, and I will end you." Inside the X-01, the crew struggled to their stations. Sparks fell from the ceiling, smoke filled the air. Shields were gone, weapons burned out. The Eclipse system lay silent, drained nearly to death. Dr. Ilara's voice cracked. "We can't survive another blast if that dreadnought fires. We're finished." Captain Rourke's fist tightened on the controls, sweat dripping down his face. "Then we don't wait for them to fire," he growled. "We strike first." Commander Hayes's old eyes burned with resolve. One ship against an empire's pride. This is what we were built for. This is Earth's chance, the AI's voice whispered. Weaker than before, but still steady. Secondary systems unlocking. Access granted. Panels across the bridge slid open, revealing controls the crew had never seen. Strange glowing circuits, symbols not of Earth. The crystals embedded in the ship pulsed faintly, like a tired heart beating once more. Alara gasped. It's another weapon system, but different. It doesn't look like destruction, it looks like control. The crew exchanged quick looks. Was this the final secret? Hayes nodded. Then it's time, give us everything. The ship shuddered. The lights dimmed, then blazed brighter. The void around them warped as if space itself bent toward the warship. The X-01 was changing, its wounded hull glowing brighter than the stars. The dreadnought opened fire. A colossal beam of red energy shot forward, tearing across the void like a blade of fire. Impact in 3 seconds, shouted an engineer, but before it struck, the X-01 responded. A shield of pure light erupted, not from machinery but from the strange alien core itself. The red beam hit and the shield shimmered, bending the energy. Then, like a mirror, it sent the blast back, straight toward the Empire's flagship. Turvak's eyes widened in horror. No! The dreadnought shuddered as its own weapon slammed into its hull. Fire erupted. Metal cracked. Alarms screamed across the flagship's bridge. But the monster ship still stood. Wounded but alive, Rourke grinned savagely. So the beast can bite and spit. Hayes gave the final command. Finish it! The X-01's crystals glowed with a final surge of energy. Its cannons roared one last time. Beams of pure light struck the flagship, tearing through its armor, splitting it apart from the inside. The dreadnought screamed as explosions ripped it in two, and then silence. Only fire remained, drifting into the void. The crew sat in stunned silence, their bodies shaking, their ears ringing. The Empire's pride was gone, the Grand Armada obliterated. The flagship destroyed, Dr. Alara whispered, almost too softly to hear. We did it. Rourke laughed weakly, leaning back in his chair. No, Alara. She did it, he said, patting the console. Our beast did it. Hayes stood tall despite his exhaustion, his voice steady. Not just a beast. Not just a weapon, she's Earth's protector. And now the galaxy knows it. For a long moment, no one spoke. The crew just listened to the faint hum of the ship, tired but alive. Then the AI's voice returned, calm and steady once more. Victory achieved. Survival probability updated. 52%, Rourke laughed again. 52? That's practically a vacation. The crew chuckled weakly. Relief mixing with exhaustion, but far beyond the wreckage. In the shadows of space, other eyes were watching. The Council, the neutral systems. The hidden enemies of the Empire all had seen what happened. News spread like fire across the galaxy. One ship, one forgotten warship, had shattered the Grand Armada. Fear gripped the Empire. Awe spread through the Council, and for the first time, the name of Earth was spoken with respect. Back on Earth, people filled the streets cheering as the news reached them. The planet that once thought itself weak now stood tall, guarded by a warship no one had believed in. Children looked up at the stars with pride, whispering the name X-01 like it was a legend. On the bridge, Hayes looked at his crew. Their faces were scarred with fatigue, but their eyes were bright. They had become more than a team. They were family, bound by fire and survival. Hayes spoke softly, his voice carrying both pride and warning. This is Earth's new dawn, but remember, power brings fear. The galaxy will not forget what we've done today. Alara nodded, her voice serious. And some will come for us. Not as allies, but as hunters. Rourke smirked. Then let them. We've got the meanest beast in the galaxy on our side. Outside, the X-01 drifted among the ruins of war, its hull scarred, its crystals glowing faintly. But even wounded, it looked unstoppable, a shadow of defiance against the endless void. The forgotten warship was no longer forgotten. It was legend, and as the galaxy trembled at Earth's rise, the crew of the X-01 prepared for whatever came next, because this was not the end. It was the beginning. It was Earth's new dawn.